Hello there folks, this is Ferengi on board again, this time with another idea I got for a video. It's like at times I have this impression that I don't know exactly what videos to focus on. It in a way gives me the impression that, I don't know exactly what to do next, but for some reason I keep getting ideas on what to speak about, even if I don't have a community that, for the moment I don't have a community of people who um, will keep on, asking me certain things about what they don't know and how I might interpret on them or what I may have felt on them. So what I wanted to discuss today is hopefully something I won't overextend, or it depends. Something called control. Okay, like everything more or less in this world is based on control and has been based on control probably ever since we appeared on this, um, planets or whatever this can actually be called. What I call this is this realm, okay, because it makes somewhat more sense to me. Well, not necessarily sense because that's a self-limiting belief, but like you get it. I simply don't like speaking that much because like I kind of don't like words. Okay, words are kind of a code that I have to use to try to make myself understood by people. And when I usually speak with people, I kind of have this habit of asking them what they understand through a term that can be easily interpretable, because I'm interested in seeing whether we share the same point. Because you see, it's funny. People have different opinions over many words, although they have the same definition in the dictionaries. Okay, like a word will always have the same definition in kind of literally any language, but all speakers of that language won't have the same meaning over that. Now this is called a 3D universe. Okay, like I doubt the whole universe is a 3D. Okay, like especially this solar system or whatever. Our realm of existence is a 3D consciousness, which means a idea of like three physical dimensions. Okay, now when I was very young, in the 5th and 6th grade, somewhere around that, because that was a period of enlightenment for me, I would think that, hey, and even later, during the 10th 11th grade, okay, I would think that, hey, if something has three dimensions on the outside, it definitely must have three dimensions on the inside. Okay, and I would think that, hey, we have the mind, we have the psyche, because to me mind and psyche were always two different things, and kind of they are, at least how I see things and how I feel those. The point is, there had to be a third inner dimension, which I called as the cyber. Now this cyber was something that I actually wrote some pieces of writing about, and I even spoke with some of my teachers about. And well, guess what, I was um, you know I won again the title and nickname the alien, which kind of I have been feeling like for like ever since I was um, quite very young. But alien also means unwanted, so at the time it was also painful to me. But you know in life you will be reminded of who and what you are, and I kind of realized that I simply am not a normal human. We all have something that's called a spiritual age. Okay, which, well, or astral age, probably you'll hear of it. It's something that, well, it's kind of hard to determine. It usually requires some people, and I don't know how capable they are of that. And imagine someone finally, like they have gone through all this training and they can, let's say, understand your, that age. But like, let's say that we children, usually the younger generations, most likely we will have a much greater spiritual background, because we come into this world as crystal children to help raise the frequency. The planet is, what I would perceive, a bit behind. I mean, the planet is evolving at her own pace because it's a living organism, but we as humans are still controlled by parasites who put up a damn fight to, like, preserve us at the lower vibration we have been at. Okay, like all the fear and everything that we have created, all the thought forms that we have created in this universe. Okay, in this world of ours are keeping us still down, and it was all part of the experiments. But once you create a thought form that is created and will function based on the principles of its own creation. If you create a thought form whose purpose is to control you, irrespective of how much you're evolving, it will still keep pulling you down because that's the programming you gave it. It's like you code a game, it won't do anything else than the code you gave it. That's the simple principle. We're not necessarily fighting those super powerful, like mega archons, like you'll hear in some of the constipational theories. There can be, and of course there will always be, like what I call animalistic forces, or forces that follow on principles of, like basic instincts, which, let's say, more or less reserve themselves to control. Okay. Now, control, we know, is somewhat an animalistic form, and I'm not saying that we humans are necessarily developed, like much more developed than animals. Yes, we are more developed than animals, but not because we are that much more awesome. Okay, don't forget, nothing happens in this universe without its permission. So in the experiment of life, we were chosen as humans, okay, because we're nothing else than experiments, and just beings that were chosen to have greater awareness compared to animals, so that we would experience, in the name of consciousness. And consciousness experiences life through any facet of itself, okay, and any facet means literally everything around you. I know that I'm somewhat pantheistic in a way, but I know that literally everything around me has its own vibration, and therefore it has its own life. The book has its own life, and also it has multiple lives at the same time, because it also vibrates with the the energies and memories, or basically karma, of the creators of that book and the materials that were used for that book. And basically, when you buy that book, you also buy the memories of different people, and not necessarily memory, what we call memory, not like remembering things of the past, or childhood memories or the such. Okay, so basically memory is everything that was mentally, psychologically, emotionally impregnated in that book. Okay, so when it was in a library, okay, before it was bought, okay, that book was bombarded by literally the emotions of every person that went around. If you are very aware of these, you are very sensitive, you can actually feel that. Okay, at a certain time I could feel my library as a jump gate. Okay, like I felt it as a powerful, this huge like stargate, and something went out of it, and it was like standing there in my room, but at the same time it felt that it was staying much further than my room, and then it suddenly ended. Okay, and my library has like 95% of the books I bought, okay, like literally I bought with my own money throughout, I don't know, the course of 1 year. And like I think it has probably a few hundred books that I bought. I didn't read most of those because, well, I only planned to create a library for the future. I thought, what if books suddenly no longer are, existent? You still need books because, books have a lot of things. Now, it's much easier to, have this instant gratification over the, through the internet, because it gives you literally everything without the necessity to go somewhere and buy a book and read through, another person's thoughts. Okay, because usually some people, especially nowadays, they kind of beat the bush because they have to have at least a certain number of pages to pull out a book. Like I would rather have a book, like 50 pages and at least give something straight, rather than having 200 pages and beat the bush. Okay, just like with my videos. But of course, with my videos, they are delivered much fast, and the videos are like years of my experience. Okay, like I put years of my experiencing, like otherworldly stuff. Now don't look at me as like this almighty astral projector that goes out and snatches answers from the teeth of different forces. Now I know that I'm connected to greater forces of inspiration, okay, and any true artist you ask, they will tell you that they just don't have those ideas. Those ideas come to them because they just open and they just start presenting things from a different perspective, because they open themselves and those ideas simply flow through them. So if you look at true artists, you will see that they don't simply exist there. Okay, they are simply so open to creation that it just flows through them. It's just a natural state of flow. I don't know how much a state of flow it is in my case, but the point is I don't even think before what I do. I'm more of a burst person in a sense. Like I prefer speaking whatever comes to my mind. Okay, many people have this illusion, they suffer from this controlling aspect. They want to control things. Everything has to be perfect. They want, they edit their videos. They put memes inside, and I have a video on memes and the dark side of those. You see, when people use memes, is a sense of control, because memes are a virus that require and actually request compliance. Okay, I've actually spoken a bit about those in another video of mine, but of course I think there are other videos out there. Like, I haven't been curious enough to look, but I think I can actually explain and dive quite deep into certain meanings, because that's why I call them deeper understanding. Most things that are spoken, usually many people, including some of the so-called gurus, kind of touch the surface. I just prefer diving deep, because like, that's literally what I've been doing ever since I was young, and it took me like years, which nowadays kind of feels like hundreds of years, to fight this idea of control over me, that I have to disregard myself and surrender myself to something which I didn't even know what that something is. It's like, it's like something in the nether tries to control me, but it like literally took me so long to find out that that something is what I created. Okay, many people create these illusionary selves that demand control. Now, what is actually control can be defined through different points. Okay, like, you can define it as manipulation, but first of all, I would define control as a natural tendency of the mind, and of course other parasitic entities, to induce meaning into everything. Now, when you induce meaning, you have to understand that meaning is subjective and subjective only. And when you induce meaning into something, you basically lower your perceptions, because you suddenly, you suddenly disregard any other possibility and only accept one single possibility. And the mind will control you through, creating all these juicy aspects, and you create all sorts of terms and concepts that, once you create them, you're just basically their slaves. You have become imprisoned in your mind, because you have given a meaning to everything, but those things actually will live without your meanings as well. Okay, like, you can shove those meanings down your ass, because no one actually cares about those meanings. It's just an important part of the experiment of life to be under this illusionary spell. Okay, because control is nothing else than a spell cast upon you, and there are those entities that will actually help you to achieve this sense of control, but you're doing nothing else than control over yourself, because it feels good when you have control over other things, but believe me, that feeling good does not belong to you. It belongs to some entities that feel good that they have control over you, because you see, the controller is not the one in control. Okay, the point that you have to understand is that you have been living life in reverse, and if you put live in reverse, it actually is evil. Okay, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily evil. Okay, I have a video on this as well. The point is, you can also watch Ralph Smart. He also speaks about living life in reverse as well, and I learned a lot of things from him. Now, the point is that you have been living life in reverse, because this has also been spoken by someone back in some while ago, that they said war is peace. Now, this definitely sounds as a mindfuck to most people, because how can war be peace? Well, war and peace are completely different, because, well, you see, they are different because they are different in your dictionaries, and your dictionary is nothing else than a set of concepts that you agree to accept, even subconsciously, because control will always work at least subconsciously. Okay, when you come in here, you have to abide to some rules, and yes, to those rules, in order to abide, you have to create some contracts, and through those contracts you will be controlled by certain entities, okay? And those entities' purpose is to simply keep you at a certain lower vibration, and those entities will also keep you, you know, compatible with basically incompatible people, because incompatible people vibrate at a lower vibration, and those parasites controlling you, they also have their own consciousness. Even if you sign a certain contract, it's not necessarily that you will follow a specific one. Just like, when you sign a contract, there's always those hidden clauses, okay? Everything that we have as control is basically nothing else than the manifestation of otherworldly forces that impose that control through us. Because the moment you give your control to such entities, it's allowing them to actually live life through you. Okay, so that is another part of control, but it depends how deep you want to go into meanings. And again, meaning can actually be, a way of self-control. Now, meaning in a way is also a sense of controlling your own reality, because that's what highly successful people do. They cannot see themselves in any other ways, and you'll never see a successful person without deep traumas. Okay, everyone or most of them started in a very bad way or reached a very critical situation in their life, starting from where they decided, hey, you know what, I never ever want to experience that again. So they started reshaping their structure, and usually success means changing your beliefs, okay, and especially the limiting beliefs. And once you do that, well, there are other guiding entities that help you through that, and they will exert a certain amount of control over you as well, because, well, that's what life actually means in this 3D level of consciousness, because the 3D level of consciousness means existing from the Manipura, which is the third chakra, and it is the chakra of control. It is the chakra of personal willpower, but since it's very rarely gonna be like perfectly balanced, the point is you will always seek control over you and or over others, okay, because it also fluctuates. Everything fluctuates. Nothing is like literally set in stone, okay. That is why people with low self-esteem at the same time wish to dominate others, but they don't mind being dominated as well, because even in fetishes people have this like reversed understanding, because the one who is the so-called slave is actually the master, and most people will probably consider me mad. No, the other one is the master. No, the slave is the master. Some people would ask, but how? Well, very simple. Imagine, let's say, fetishes like bondage, for example, okay? Most people definitely like it. It's a way of, in a way, let's say, accepting control over you, but it's most likely being in control. And, it's being control and in control at the same time. But, the point is, when people function at the fetishistic level, it's nothing else than a very, extremely low self-esteem level, okay? And the slave is basically the master, because they're not doing anything. They are the one expecting, and the so-called master is doing nothing else than abiding to the so-called slave, okay? The master is actually giving to the slave, and the slave are actually receiving. So the slave is the one who's taking, okay? The slave is the so-called miserable one, just like the narcissist. They are the miserable one, but they are the master, okay? They are slaves at the same time of their parasites that control them, and their karmic debt that they have to, pay off in a way. But the point at the same time is that they are literally the master, and through their idea of always appearing as the apparently weak one, okay, because that's how they gain your sympathy, that's how they control you. Like most of us have watched porn, and I don't find it shameful to speak about porn. I'd not be ashamed of posting a video about pornography, but I don't know how YouTube will actually react to that, so I will probably speak about it indirectly, more or less. Now the point is, life lived in reverse is again another idea of control, because you don't exhibit control over someone specifically or an entity specifically. It's creating an idea, an illusion, planting a seed in their mind, and nurturing that seed instead. So what people do is basically they follow some illusions that you plant into them, and that's how you gain control over them. Because the rules of the universe say that no other bit of consciousness will truly and directly be able to control or shape or shift another bit of consciousness without that consciousness's acceptance. So basically, when someone controls you, you're accepting their control. Okay, and nothing happens in this universe without its permission. So if you allow the control of others over you, well, it's you who allows it. Also, attacks, psychic attacks and the such, appear as a form of karmic debt, and they take care because you basically allow those things to happen. The source of the attack is not the other entity, it is you, because you allow that attack to happen, and this is something you'll probably learn in advanced Reiki or different other such similar practices, because when you use power in ways more than you should, you're also opening yourself up to such attacks, because when you abuse, okay, when you use abuse over others, okay, means when you're using more control over others than you should, well, that is when you also create some debt, okay, and this karma is basically information, okay, nothing else than information. When you abuse others, let's say that in a video game mentality, you kind of debuff yourself, okay, you apply a permanent effect to yourself that says, hey, you know, so you see, when you do this, okay, when you fall for control, or actually when you abuse others, you do this as a result because some other parasites induce you to do that. Why it feels good is because it feeds those parasites, and when it feeds those parasites, they feel good. So this sensation of feeling good is basically that collective feeling good of the parasites, or the single one that's controlling you, because it can be more, it can be only one, it always depends, okay. But we all have such parasites, because in a way you cannot come into this world without having at least some of those as part of your contract, okay. This is also decided, and don't forget, the universe will never throw at you more than you can actually handle, and therefore nothing happens without the universe's permission. I have been attacked psychically, yes, probably I will throw a video on that. I have been, you know, surrounded and even physically pushed by something that wasn't in there, but again, according to the karmic laws, they cannot do more than that. Certainly they can actually do, because you know, doing that goes against the karmic laws, but come again, some of the parasites, especially the ones who become more powerful, they don't oblige themselves to these laws entirely, because they are severed from the idea of creation. And being severed by the idea of creation, the point is very simple. They can disregard some of these rules, okay. Now, even if someone can actually, you know, become well, there is no such thing as becoming karmic free, okay. Many people believe that this karma is kind of a, you know, like a very bad curse, but you know, karma is also that which keeps you together, okay. Let's call it like the coding behind your existence, okay, because just like you create a character in a video game, it is nothing else than a bunch of code, okay. All the functions, all the things that it can do is basically the coding that in you know, it makes things fall together, okay. And when creating a game, okay, there are two big skills, okay, that have several others, okay, but you know, those are ingrained in these two big skills. You have the developers and you have the designers, okay. So the designers come up with the, you know, the idea of control over the game, because through their expression, okay, they control the game, okay. How they control the game is by giving meaning, okay. In that game, this happens and that happens and these happen, okay. So it's like creating limitations. So basically the game is a set of limitations, okay. And the designers create like literally everything, and the developer's purpose is to create the, let's say, functional and physical limitations, because in a game, let's say a game like Guild Wars 1, for example, doesn't have jumping. So basically that is a limitation, okay. But limitation is actually the lack of something, okay, because you know, you don't create limitation, or okay, like limitation is a result of something, it's not a problem, okay. And I'm not calling it as a problem specifically, but when you use control, and we all use control over ourselves because of different programmings, okay, like we say that we are, for example, poor, or people who, they bitch and complain a lot, they have a control that they execute against themselves, because they induce this mentality that, they are very poor, and they look for, mercy from others, okay? And, like, they use children, because children are always used, and when they use children because they have those beautiful, pure eyes, okay? And this is something that I call the dog exploit, okay? Now, many people love dogs, and I also don't mind them, okay? But many people say that, oh my god, look, it's such a awesome and cute puppy, right? And they come to you and make those big puppy eyes, okay? But why do you think they do that? Do you think they do that because they like you? Well, to give you a point is, no, they don't like you. They do that because they see you as a sucker, okay? Probably this is going to hurt a lot of people, and I'm not intending to hurt people, but you see, dogs are simple animals, okay? Now, dogs can actually love you. I'm not saying that dogs don't love, but you see, it's not necessarily that much about love, it's more about loyalty. Their coding, let's say, has them be, as a pack, okay? They instinctively will seek friendships, okay, because they are social and more or less loyal entities. But in order to be loyal to others, you also have to be loyal to yourself, because if you're not loyal to yourself, it means you don't have some founding principles by which to exist. And if you don't have that, you're basically the slave of different controlling programmings, okay? And if you're the slave of controlling programmings, you're not a ruler of your own self. And if you're not a ruler of your own self, definitely your loyalty won't necessarily exist, because the way I see things and I perceive them, loyalty is a result of own self-control, okay? So loyalty is something that would come with more or less of a self, like a balanced, manipura, the third chakra, okay? So with that, dogs also exert a certain control over you. And that is why I usually say that the humans usually are the slaves and the animals are somewhat the masters, okay? Because humans get stuck and they all do these same routines, and suddenly, oh my god, they remember they actually have to walk the dog outside, but it's actually the dog who is somewhat in control, because they are doing their own things, and in many cases the humans don't like it. It's like, oh my god, I have this dog, I have to walk it out. It's like, why do you have the dog? It's like, why do you have the dog? If you don't like it, why don't you let it free? Now, many people on the other side come, under the influence of, other controlling entities that put all these stupid ideas in their minds and say, oh my god, you let that dog free on the streets, you're such a monster. It's like, dude, that animal has, like basic existence coding, okay? Like, if you're dumb enough to think that a dog, if you let it astray, right, on the streets, it cannot handle for its own self, you're dumber than law should probably agree, okay, to let you free. Because like, I kind of have a belief that dumb people shouldn't be let on the streets necessarily, but it means your awareness is not that great. That dog is still a wild animal. Just because it's staying with you is not an expression of them loving you, okay? Every animal loves themselves more or less, okay? They're also like us, and we're also animals, okay? But it's a principle of instant gratification, which is another sense of self-control, okay, or being controlled by others, because it's always going to be much easier to take the easier path, especially if the prize is the same. Just like in a game, the ending is the same, and why go through the difficult path, right? Many people will want the difficult path, but most players will actually choose the easy path, because the ending is kind of the same, okay? You just beat the final boss, or something like that. And hard mode usually means more enemies, or greater stats for the enemies, right? But it's basically gonna be kind of the same action, okay? So the point is that, well, I became a bit lost in my ideas because I was thinking about 2 or 3, and it's like they suddenly vanished. But the idea of control it's very fuzzy to give a definition. And I'm not the guy to give definitions, because the moment when you give a definition, you let certain illusions gain control over you. Because like I spoke about some ideas of over control through this video, and it's like how you would define them is like how you let yourself controlled by those beliefs you have. I naturally don't have a tendency or a necessity to define things, because through definition I cede some of my power. To whom or to what? Well, I don't know if something actually comes and say, what, it's like I control you now, like you created the definition, you're my bitch. You're basically your own master in a way, because you're submitting to your own ideas. Okay, if someone says, hey, water is this, that is a definition they came up with. Okay, so it's a meaning they agree to. You don't necessarily have to agree to it. Like, you can say, okay, fine, be it your way. Okay, and you give them the impression now that you agree to it, but you see, you just don't. Like, stick to low vibrational people's ideas, but don't necessarily accept them. Do things your own way. That's what successful people say. Okay, now those people have the impression that they have a grasp over you, but that grasp does not belong to them. It belongs to their controlling parasites, because as of what I said, life is all a bunch of parasites that come and some you agreed to control you because they will help you experience, and in the end they're also interested in experiencing as well. Don't see these parasites as always evil. Okay, they're also interested, and the reason why they attach themselves to you, besides the fact they cannot gain their own energy and they want their energy and they will snatch it from you, the point is they're also curious about what life is like in here, but they're parasites. And secondarily is again this animalistic aspect of instant gratification. Okay, why go through the bothersome aspect of getting born and going through all the traumas, and also the fear that when you are born you're also going to let yourself controllable by others. Okay, so why would a parasite come and experience life by getting born and going through all the natural processes, when they can simply latch themselves onto someone compatible? Because when you create that contract, that contract is not written in stone, because the way you live your life, that contract changes itself automatically. If you become an abuser, basically you are saying, hey, I have this memory, I have these debuffs that I've been using more control than I should. So you're basically putting yourself out, hey, free slave for use. Okay, because abusers are nothing else than slaves. Okay, they have been in a way slaves to they have submitted themselves to other people's control. Okay, and abuse is another form of control, because probably they chose to experience that. That is why some children are born in abusive families, because they are helping pay the karmic debt of the past. Okay, and they are also helping in a way cure some of the old habits of the past and old rages and old grudges of the past. Now the point is, on your contract you chose to experience life and to help raise the vibration, and you have to go through some traumas, but it doesn't mean that if you go through those traumas in this life you will most likely succeed, because things are volatile. Okay, so probably in this life you won't succeed. In a parallel life you may succeed. You probably will die as a miserable person, not the saint that you wanted to be, and well, afterwards you'll probably live this life again, because you can live a certain life in several ways and you will always have different results. Okay, and through that you can experience multiple things. Just like when you play a video game, it has the same main ideas. Okay, just like living the same life has. Okay, you will go through, in this world you will go through the main important steps. Okay, you will be born, most likely you will get married, you will go through some schooling, and well, eventually you shall perish. Okay, just like a video game will have the same story, but every time you will finish it in a different approach. You won't walk the same number of steps, you won't necessarily kill the foes in the same order, and even if you do that, you won't step in the same number of in the same ways as before. You will also be more knowledgeable of the AI's capabilities, and all sorts of things. Okay, and when you play a game, you're doing nothing else than primarily like single player games, you're doing nothing else than primarily exploiting the AIs. Okay, because when you see the AI, okay, basically, well, it is a set of coding. Okay, and just like you, we also have our own coding, and through that coding we are encased in limitation in a way, because basically let's consider ourselves as a cube, okay, and this cube, we have all the possibilities inside, but beyond the cube is basically our limitation, okay, because those are things that we cannot apparently do. But also ask yourselves that, is that cube actually your own limitation, or are they like the final limitations of humanity? Okay, it's like there are multiple levels of limitation, okay, and limitation is another form of control. Now hopefully you've liked this video. I will speak about this in others, probably come up with other opinions and other things, okay, like I don't like diving necessarily into constipational theories and the archons that came and they claim the earth and you'll burn in hell and religions type of control. Like there are thousands of sources on this, I'd say. So my main interest is to give people a more insightful approach and more like different ideas on what a certain thing can be, because again, if you ask 1,000 people what they think about control, you will see nothing else than their grudges, okay. You will most likely see automated responses, and automated responses are an example of people that have a low self-esteem and people that haven't made peace with their grudges, okay. Because an automated response is something that comes out of a trauma, out of something that still holds control over them. And again, another possible definition for control. You see? Ain't life magical, I'd say. Okay, feel free to like whatever I'm creating, feel free to subscribe and follow if you're interested, or at least the thing which is more important to me, share it with others so that we can understand more about the universe and we can have people raise their consciousness and their awareness, because that is basically my purpose, and it's like what I'm interested in doing, okay. And it's not an interest, it's my purpose as I feel it, okay. Now until next time, don't forget, become more introspective, learn that the truth can also be found inside. It's not something that happens instantly and you have to go through a lot of purging and self-cleansing, which we are also going because of everything increasing in vibration through the planetary development, and well, the universe is always evolving. Check my previous video on gravity, because I say what a bit about gravity and what it can be, because I'm not going to enforce my opinions on others. Okay, until next time, take more care, love yourselves more. Ferenc Bor signing out.